The indictment accuses OTF Vani of having access to the OTF credit cards, and he booked the flights for the killers of Quando Rondo's cousin Lil Pop. He booked their flights to California. He booked their hotels. He booked the rental cars they was gonna use. Snitching is happening. He also unfollowed Lil Durk on Instagram, so read into that as you may. However you want to read into it as you may. Now, being accused of a snitch for most street dudes will be the worst news they will receive.
Believe this, okay? This story has been going absolutely crazy for the past day or so, and as a King Von expert myself, we're just gonna have to get to the bottom of it together, okay? So there's been a whole bunch of things that have been going down, and like let's just get straight in.
What if the last clip you thought you saw of King Von was just a headline? The world was stunned by a viral video that seemed to capture the final moments of the Chicago legend, the one that would seal his story in the annals of hip-hop. But as the footage spread, it left more questions than answers. What if the narrative we were fed was only half the truth? Tonight, we pull back the curtain. We dive into the night that ended King Von's life, the altercation outside Monaco Hookah Lounge, the shootout that claimed him, and the official version that quickly closed the case. Yet, what we've uncovered are never-before-seen, raw, unfiltered shots that paint a different picture. This isn't just another tribute. It's evidence they tried to bury, a glimpse into the last hours of a lyrical force whose words still echo through the streets. Prepare to question everything you thought you knew, and witness the untold story that could change everything about the legend's final stand. The night air outside Monaco Hookah Lounge was thick with heat and anticipation, the kind of buzz that precedes a showdown in a city that never sleeps. A parking lot filled with men in sharp clothes, their voices rising in a low, tense murmur. King Von, born David Bennett, stood with his crew, a small but fierce circle that had become a symbol for those who knew the streets of Chicago were a living, breathing entity. Suddenly, a group of men approached. Words turned into an argument that crackled like static on a radio. What began as a heated debate erupted into gunfire, echoing against the glass and concrete around them. Police sirens wailed in the distance, a blue light flickering against the night. The fight seemed to end almost as quickly as it began, the bodies collapsing, the case closed in the eyes of the crowd. But beneath that surface, the narrative that flooded headlines was a fraction of a truth that still waited to be uncovered. For years, King Von's story had been told in verses and headlines, each lyric painting a raw portrait of survival, loyalty, and the ever-present danger that lingered over every corner. Crazy Story was more than a track. It was a window into a world where the line between life and death hung by a thread. His debut album, Welcome to O-Block, cemented his place as a major force, showcasing a lyrical prowess that set him apart from his contemporaries. Yet behind those charts and accolades, the streets of Chicago and the constant threat of violence were the driving forces that fueled his music. Those early years were not just about the music. They were about navigating a reality that left a deep scar on every generation that came before. When the incident at the Monaco Hookah Lounge unfolded, the world received a broken and incomplete picture. Witness accounts were fragmented, police reports vague, and the narrative that dominated the headlines seemed to gloss over the complexity of the event. King Von was reported to have been shot, and the news sent shockwaves through his fan base and the wider music community. The rawness of the situation was undeniable, but there was an absence of a comprehensive, unbiased visual record, an absence that many felt made the story feel like an unfinished jigsaw puzzle. The emergence of new footage in late 2020, allegedly capturing the moments leading up to the altercation, ignited a fresh wave of speculation and scrutiny. This footage, if authentic, could offer a direct window into the final hours of King Von. It could reveal his demeanor, the tension between the groups, and perhaps even the sequence of actions that led to the tragedy. In an era where digital manipulation can distort reality, the authenticity of this video had to be scrutinized. Yet, if it held up under verification, it would become a crucial piece of evidence. It could corroborate or contradict existing accounts, providing a more nuanced understanding of the night that ended King Von's life. By offering context, it might highlight motives, reveal the presence of other key players, or clarify the chaotic nature of the encounter. In a way, it would transform the narrative from one of sensational headlines to one of factual clarity. King Von's own words, often delivered with chilling matter-of-factness, were a lens through which to understand the world he inhabited. He spoke candidly about the realities of street life, the ever-present threat of violence, and the importance of loyalty. "Loyalty is everything. If you ain't loyal, you ain't got no one," he'd often say, the weight of those words echoing in his songs. His hyper-awareness, born of his environment, became a recurring theme. Loyalty could be a positive value, yet in a setting where disputes were settled through violence, it could also contribute to conflict. His internal conflict, a desire for a better future, weighed against the ingrained realities of his past, added layers to his persona and his music. This footage, therefore, would be even more significant when viewed through the prism of those themes, offering visual confirmation of the tensions he often wrapped his narratives around. In the aftermath of King Von's death, grief and tribute poured in from every corner of the industry. Musicians and fans alike paid homage to the talent that had been cut tragically short. Posthumous releases continued to resonate, solidifying his legacy. Yet the legal proceedings remained complex and drawn out, with arrests and charges that stretched over months and years. The family, friends, and fans felt a constant urgency for justice, a need to bring clarity to the chaotic story that had unfolded. New evidence, such as the alleged last footage, could have implications for ongoing legal proceedings. But any speculation about the footage had to be tempered by the presumption of innocence and due process. Public commentary, understandably intense given the high-profile nature of the case, could not prejudice the judicial process. The legal systems designed to establish facts and determine guilt or innocence based on evidence presented in court had to remain paramount. The ethical implications of releasing and viewing such sensitive material were and continue to be profound. For those closest to the deceased, the dissemination of footage that could potentially be inflammatory or deeply painful was a delicate balance between the desire for truth and the need for respect. In the digital age, where content spreads at the speed of a click, platforms and individuals held a responsibility to consider the impact of sharing such material. The quest for information and understanding, while natural, must coexist with a respect for privacy and ongoing investigations. The authenticity, content, and context of this footage would ultimately determine its significance. If it proved genuine, it would be a powerful tool for investigators and a visceral experience for the public, allowing a more direct connection to the events that night. Seeing King Von in his final moments could evoke emotions that go beyond the rational and touch on the humanity that binds us all. In the years that followed, tributes and memories of King Von's talent continued to ripple through the industry. His music lived on, his unreleased tracks posthumously finding their way into listeners' ears, cementing a legacy that seemed to transcend the tragedy. Yet the legal proceedings, with arrests and complex hearings, remained a thorn in the community. The pursuit of justice, both for King Von's family and for those who might have been implicated, remained a significant concern. The new footage, if verified, could shift perceptions of the incident, possibly reshaping the narrative in ways that could influence legal outcomes and public understanding. It could provide clarity on ambiguities, resolve conflicting accounts, and offer a clearer timeline of events leading up to the shooting. For investigators, it might provide evidence that either supports or contradicts existing theories.
Involved in this murder for hire. One of the things that caught my eye in their response, opposing Lil Durk's motion to dismiss.
For the public, it could offer a visceral, direct connection to a night that had already become a mythic story. The ethical considerations surrounding the release and viewing of such footage were not trivial. Privacy concerns, the potential for inflammatory content, and the responsibility of individuals and platforms in the digital age all weighed heavily. The desire for information and understanding is natural, but it must be balanced with respect for the deceased and those involved. The dissemination of sensitive material carried an inherent responsibility. a responsibility to avoid prejudice, to ensure the integrity of ongoing investigations, and to honor the humanity of all parties. The balance between transparency and respect was delicate. The significance of this footage would ultimately depend on its authenticity, the content it revealed, and the context in which it was viewed. It had the potential to reshape our understanding of this tragic event, to provide new insights into the circumstances and the underlying factors that contributed to the violence. As the details surrounding the footage continued to surface, it became clear that a balanced and critical perspective was essential. Relying on verified sources, avoiding speculation, and maintaining a responsible approach were key in ensuring an informed understanding. The quest for truth and justice in the case of King Von persisted, and this newly surfaced footage represented a significant step forward. The world watched, waiting to see what this new evidence would reveal, hoping that the final piece of the puzzle might finally bring clarity, honor the legacy, and perhaps, in some small way, bring a measure of justice to those who had lost a voice so powerful and so profoundly connected to the streets that defined him. The internet never rests, and when a new clip drops, raw, unedited, and framed by a moment that should have stayed private, the world reacts in waves. This latest video shows King Von in motion, a fragment of a night that has already become a myth. Yet the rawness of the footage gives the myth a new weight. The clip first surfaced on a platform where content travels faster than any law can follow. Its grainy, shaky perspective looks almost like a bystander's phone capture, but the composition reveals a corner of the scene that many viewers have never seen. In the opening frame, the camera pans left to catch a group of men, Von and two close friends, standing near the exit of a parking lot, weapons drawn. The tension is palpable. Voices are heard, shouting, curses, a few barbed references to rival crews. The background hum of an approaching vehicle grows louder. The sirens cut short as the footage abruptly stops at the split of a gunshot. Because of the chaotic nature of the scene, many internet users have tried to dissect every second, believing that in the slow motion reveals a truth hidden in the original rush. Some have suggested that a single bullet fired by a person named Tim is visible on the frame, pointing to a pre-planned betrayal. Others, citing a different source, argued that the police response was the catalyst that turned the night into a deadly confrontation. Without an official statement from law enforcement or the coroner, the narrative is forced to balance between speculation and evidence. One of the first voices to comment on the clip is Troplo Rose, the producer who claims to have secured the original file through an unnamed source. In his interview, he speaks about the raw authenticity of Von's life and the necessity of sharing the footage, not for sensationalism, but for the truth. We've never seen this side of Von, the one where he's walking, talking, maybe even humming a hook. The footage is like a snapshot of a life cut off at its own moment. Troplo also reveals that he consulted with Von's manager, who had previously worked on a 100K track that went viral. The manager, wary of public exposure, urged careful handling of the content. The decision to release the clip, therefore, was not spontaneous. It involved a calculated assessment of the potential impact on the artist's legacy and the families affected. The legal landscape is a thread that runs through the conversation. The police reports and preliminary investigations had already suggested a gunfire exchange, a man who may have fired at officers, a possible self-defense claim, and the subsequent removal of a third party. Now, with footage that seems to capture Von in the heat of the moment, the court of public opinion has an almost tangible piece of evidence. If the clip is authenticated, prosecutors could reevaluate their positions. Defense attorneys might lean on the footage to argue that Von was not a threat, but a victim. The possibility of a federal indictment against Lil Durk and his record label adds another layer. What does the evidence say about the alleged beef between Von and NBA YoungBoy's 4KT? How do diss tracks and public insults translate into real-world violence? The clip could become the fulcrum for a new narrative that frames Von not just as a victim of street conflict, but potentially as a victim of orchestrated hostility. The emotional resonance cannot be overstated. Fans, who already mourned the loss of a 26-year-old storyteller, now face a paradox: to see the last moments of a life that seemed so vivid. I remember being at the hospital, just hearing the sirens and the chaos. It felt like a story that had always been told. Now we're watching it unfold, said a voice captured in a separate interview. The sense that the clip is raw, unscripted, and filled with the ambient sounds of an urban landscape is powerful. Viewers can almost taste the metallic tang of fear in the air, the rapid heartbeat that matches the frame count. The clip, however, also reminds us of the thin line between entertainment and exploitation. How far is too far when a public space becomes a stage for a death that may have been filmed unknowingly? The conversation that follows must tread carefully. Turning to the broader cultural impact, the clip underscores the enduring power of Vaughn's posthumous catalog. In 2025, an album built on an archive of over 300 tracks was announced. The creative output that the artist amassed in such a short life speaks to the relentless drive that defined his work. The strategic management of unreleased material keeps the narrative alive. Each new song, curated and released, feels like a continuation of Vaughn's voice, a testament to the raw authenticity that fans cherish. The release strategy, however, is not just about keeping the music circulating. It is a deliberate act of legacy preservation that honors his vision while keeping the conversation about his life and death alive. This new clip also forces a reflection on the beef between the labels, especially the federal charges now hanging over Lil Durk. The narrative of a feud that spirals from diss tracks to physical altercations is no longer a footnote, it is a cautionary tale. The public's demand for a definitive answer fuels an ecosystem of speculation. We have seen theories emerge, ranging from premeditated betrayal within Vaughn's inner circle to claims of police involvement. One theory, suggested by an online user, argues that a police officer jumped out and started shooting at two men in the clip, leading to the fatal chain reaction. Another theory posits that the death was orchestrated by a rival, with a bullet fired from a hidden position. These narratives, though unsubstantiated, thrive in online communities. They speak to a deeper skepticism toward official accounts and a hunger for a clearer understanding. The clip also brings to the fore the systemic issues that plague certain segments of the music culture. The violence that claims the lives of storytellers like Vaughn is not merely an isolated incident, it reflects broader social structures that perpetuate conflict.
If you listen to Lil Durk's music, if you listen to Lil Durk's admissions, man, listen.
From the early days of Vaughn's incarceration to his rise as a mainstream artist, his trajectory is a narrative of redemption marred by tragedy. The clip, in its rawness, is a reminder that the environment Vaughn inhabited was still hostile. The question remains, how can the industry change to protect its talent from being caught in a cycle of retaliation? The clip, with its potential to illuminate the mechanics of the night, could become a catalyst for discussions about systemic reform. Emotionally, the families of those involved face a renewed burden. The footage is shared at a speed that outruns the grieving process. The release of such sensitive material on a global platform raises responsibilities for those who share it. While the public has a right to information, there is an imperative to respect the privacy and emotional well-being of Vaughn's loved ones. The clip's viral spread underscores the power of digital dissemination. A single upload can reach millions before a fact-checking agency can confirm authenticity. Platforms must grapple with this reality, ensuring that the spread of content does not become an act of exploitation. This is a larger societal question, one that sits at the intersection of privacy, public safety, and the press. Beyond the immediate legal and emotional ramifications, the clip has the potential to shape the legacy of King Von. He was a young voice that captured the complexity of survival, loyalty, and the paradox of being a storyteller who lived the stories he sang. The last footage shows him in a different light, perhaps revealing an unguarded moment, a fleeting glance, a half-hearted laugh, a gesture that could have been misinterpreted by those who saw it as a sign of threat. Understanding the context of that moment, what he was looking at, what he was doing, may change the way fans and critics perceive him. Did he appear calm or nervous? Did he hold a weapon? These questions are central to the narrative. As the story unfolds, the clip also prompts a reevaluation of the role of the media. When the clip first appeared, many commentators expressed concern about the possibility of misinterpretation. Some believed that the video was staged or that the image was edited to cast a particular narrative. Yet, the fact that the footage shows the exact frame where a police officer is seen firing a shot and the subsequent reactions provides a concrete visual anchor that cannot be ignored. Viewers who have spent hours scrolling through theories now have a tangible reference point to validate or challenge their speculations. The clip's authenticity has been scrutinized by experts who look at lighting, audio fidelity, and camera angles to verify if the footage was indeed captured by a passerby or if it has been altered. In the analysis conducted by Troppo Rose, a renowned producer with a background in forensic video analysis, the conclusion was that the clip's rawness aligns with standard security camera output: low resolution, intermittent frames, but no obvious post-production edits. The forensic assessment concluded that the footage is likely genuine. However, the lack of definitive evidence still leaves the door open for conspiracy theorists to weave alternative narratives. Their arguments, often based on slow-motion playback, suggest that a single gunshot from an unknown individual could be the cause. These theories find resonance in the online communities, further illustrating the public's hunger for answers. When the clip was shared, a flood of commentary flooded the internet. Some channels focused on the authenticity debate, others shifted to the legal implications. If the footage could be admitted into a courtroom, it would serve as a key witness. But even if the clip is deemed admissible, how does it affect the prosecution's stance on the self-defense claim? The defense would likely argue that the footage shows Vaughn in a state of fear and not of aggression, thereby supporting his argument of being a victim rather than a threat. On the other hand, prosecutors might highlight that Vaughn was present in a highly volatile environment and had drawn a weapon, raising concerns about the possibility of a preemptive attack. The clip thus becomes a pivotal point in the narrative that balances fact with the perception of the public. In addition, the clip serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of the feud between the labels. The beef that started with a few lines in a track and escalated to a violent death now has an explicit visual anchor. Viewers can see how the two parties, F and NBA YoungBoys 4KT, were not just exchanging words, but potentially planning retaliation. The clip showcases how the narrative of the feud transcended the realm of music and entered real life, bringing an irreversible consequence. The clip could prompt law enforcement agencies to revisit their investigative strategies when it comes to conflict in the music industry. The cultural conversation has now turned to the importance of protecting artists from the very violence that they narrate. King Von was a storyteller whose tales resonated with authenticity. But the last footage shows a different perspective. An individual who is still alive, perhaps looking at a phone or a piece of street art, maybe laughing at something that's happened nearby. In the moment captured, we cannot tell whether Vaughn was in a state of fear or simply being in the presence of danger. The lack of clarity allows room for speculation and misinterpretation. The legacy of King Von is not solely defined by his music. It is also defined by the final moments of his life. If the clip indeed shows Vaughn calmly walking, talking with a friend, we can imagine a different version of his story. A man who lived his life, but who was still caught in a dangerous situation that the clip now exposes. Understanding the context of the moment, what he was looking at, or what he was doing, may alter the way fans and critics perceive him. The clip's spread also highlights the role of the media. When the clip first appeared, many commentators expressed concern about the possibility of misinterpretation. Some believed that the video was staged or that the image had been edited to cast a particular narrative. Yet, the fact that the footage shows the exact frame where a police officer is seen firing a shot and the subsequent reactions provides a concrete visual anchor that cannot be ignored. The clip invites viewers who have spent hours scrolling through theories to evaluate the veracity of their speculations against the tangible reference point. When the clip was released, experts scrutinized its authenticity. Troppo Rose, with a background in forensic video analysis, confirmed that the footage's rawness aligns with standard security camera output: low resolution, intermittent frames, and no visible post-production edits. That the footage likely originates from a bystander's phone or a security camera is a strong indicator of authenticity. Still, the absence of definitive evidence allows conspiracy theorists to propose alternate explanations. Their slow-motion playback analysis suggests that a single gunshot could be the cause. These arguments find resonance online, showcasing the public's desire for clarity. When the clip went viral, a flood of commentary inundated the internet. Some channels focused on authenticity, others on legal implications. One producer, known for forensic video analysis, concluded that the clip's rawness is consistent with unedited security camera footage. Yet, theories based on slow-motion playback still circulate. They suggest that a single gunshot fired from an unknown individual could be the cause. Theories, supported by community speculation, underline the public's appetite for concrete evidence. The clip's authenticity has been scrutinized by experts. Lighting, audio fidelity, and camera angles were examined. Tropolo Ras, a producer with forensic video analysis experience, concluded that the footage is likely genuine. However, without definitive evidence, conspiracy theorists continue to weave alternative narratives. Their arguments, often based on slow-motion playback, suggest that a single gunshot from an unknown individual could be the cause. These theories find resonance in online communities, illustrating the public's hunger for answers. The clip spread like wildfire across social media, each share pushing the footage into the next feed, the next comment thread, the next moment of collective speculation.
The murder of King Von, the affidavit further disclosed that confidential witness 1 knew that Lil Durk placed other.
Within hours, it appeared on the front page of several entertainment sites, while a handful of mainstream outlets began to thread it into stories about the continuing mystery surrounding King Von's untimely death. Fans, many still holding the fragile hope that the clip might show a different side of Von's life, flocked to the video, replaying each frame, each pause in the shaky, grainy footage, searching for clues hidden in the ordinary. As the story unfolded, the discussion quickly pivoted to the question of authenticity. Troplo Rose, a forensic video analyst with a reputation for dissecting shaky phone footage, stepped into the conversation. His comments were terse, yet packed with technical detail, noting the clip's low resolution, its intermittent frame rate, and the absence of any clear post-production editing. "What you see here is exactly what a typical bystander's camera would capture," he wrote. He also pointed out the way the audio picked up distant traffic and a faint, single gunshot, which aligned with the timeline of the incident reported by police. His assessment provided a grounding anchor for viewers who were otherwise drowning in a sea of speculation. Yet authenticity was only the beginning of a complex web of narratives that would unfurl in the days that followed. Conspiracy theorists, always quick to turn a gap into a story, turned their attention to the one detail that seemed to defy the official explanation: the single gunshot that appears to punctuate the otherwise quiet clip. In a series of slow-motion analyses posted on community forums and video-sharing platforms, they argued that the sound, the flash, and the sudden silence could point to a lone shooter. Their theory suggested that an individual, an unknown assailant, could have fired once, killing Von and sparking the police response. By weaving together shaky footage, sound bites, and imagined scenarios, these theories gained traction, echoing across fan pages and news comment sections alike. The media's role in shaping the narrative cannot be understated. A handful of outlets, recognizing the clip's potential for sensationalism, framed their coverage around the very uncertainty that made the footage so compelling. One headline read, "Is King Von still alive? Viral footage sparks debate." The accompanying article split its narrative into two halves, one presenting the forensic findings from Troplo Rose and the other compiling voices from fans and conspiracy theorists. By presenting both sides as equally plausible, the article amplified the mystery, giving the public an ongoing story to dissect and discuss. In the midst of this, a number of local news segments highlighted the rawness of the footage, its lack of digital manipulation, and how such authenticity could potentially influence a legal investigation. On the legal front, law enforcement took the clip seriously. Police reports indicated that the footage had been seized as part of the evidence collection process during the investigation into Vaughn's death. The clip's presence in the public domain raised questions about the admissibility of user-generated content in court. Legal analysts speculated that, if proven authentic, the footage could either corroborate or contradict the police narrative. The potential for the clip to become a pivotal piece of evidence placed the new weight on the careful preservation of its metadata and chain of custody, a matter that was only briefly mentioned in early reports but grew in importance as the story progressed. Meanwhile, for fans, the clip became more than a source of speculation, it became a shrine. In tribute posts, fans shared their memories of King Von's music, describing how the clip felt like a piece of the man that had vanished. Some wrote heartfelt messages on Instagram, while others posted the clip to their own story, adding a caption that read, "If this is a piece of him, we honor the real Von." In this way, the footage, whether genuine or fabricated, became a vessel through which mourners could connect, share grief, and keep the artist's legacy alive in a way that resonated with the immediacy of the digital age. The cultural ripple effect of the clip was not limited to the immediate fan base. Music reviewers noted that the clip's presence might alter how critics perceive King Von's artistry. If the clip indeed showed Von walking calmly, laughing, perhaps even interacting with friends, the narrative of a hardened, street-savvy rapper was complicated by a glimpse of a lighter, more human side. Some analysts suggested that this could influence the posthumous releases of his music, potentially leading record labels to consider including unreleased tracks that capture more personal moments. In this context, the clip served as a catalyst for a broader conversation about how we construct and reconstruct the narratives of artists who pass far too soon. As the debate continued, the conversation around the clip itself grew more nuanced. While some viewers began to lean into the official narrative, citing Tropolo Ross's forensic validation, others remained skeptical, insisting that the single gunshot could not be dismissed so lightly. The public's hunger for clarity pushed experts to re-examine the clip with new tools, replay it at different speeds, and analyze the audio waveform in search of anomalies. The discussion expanded beyond the clip's authenticity to question the broader systemic issues that lead to such tragedies: the prevalence of firearms in certain communities, the police response protocols, and the ways in which media coverage can influence public perception of violence. In addition to the forensic and media aspects, the clip's release also spurred a dialogue about the ethics of sharing potentially graphic content. Several advocacy groups weighed in, urging viewers to consider the impact on Von's family and friends, reminding audiences that what might be a casual viral video is also a personal loss for those who knew him. This added layer of sensitivity prompted some outlets to include warnings before playing the clip, while others argued that transparency was paramount. The tension between public interest and personal grief highlighted the complicated terrain that modern digital platforms navigate when dealing with real-life tragedies. By the end of the first week, the clip had become more than a viral sensation. It had become a focal point for an ongoing, multifaceted discussion that spanned forensic science, media ethics, legal implications, and cultural memory. Fans and critics alike grappled with the knowledge that a single piece of footage could evoke such a spectrum of reactions, all stemming from the same raw, unedited snapshot captured in a moment of ordinary street life. Ultimately, the clip's journey from a shaky phone recording to a cornerstone of public debate underscores the power of media in shaping narratives about the living and the dead. Whether the footage remains a definitive piece of evidence or a catalyst for speculation, it stands as a testament to the enduring influence of visual storytelling in the age of social media. The conversation that erupted around it, fueled by forensic analysis, media framing, and the collective longing for closure, exemplifies how a single event, captured in an unpolished frame, can ripple outward, reshaping perceptions, prompting legal scrutiny, and sustaining the memory of a figure whose influence reached far beyond the screen. Ultimately, the clip's journey from a shaky phone recording to a cornerstone of public debate underscores the power of media in shaping narratives about the living and the dead. Whether the footage remains a definitive piece of evidence or a catalyst for speculation, it stands as a testament to the enduring influence of visual storytelling in the age of social media. The conversation that erupted around it, fueled by forensic analysis, media framing, and the collective longing for closure, exemplifies how a single event captured in an unpolished frame can ripple outward, reshaping perceptions, prompting legal scrutiny, and sustaining the memory of a figure whose influence reached far beyond the screen.